$300 for the fat one and her 7 brats. The auctioneer's gavel froze midair. Clara Beckett's knees buckled. No one had bid on her. Not one man in 43. They had called her worthless, undesirable, a burden no sane man would carry. The territorial officer already held papers to scatter her children across the frontier like dead leaves. Then a stranger's voice cut through the January wind. A man stepped forward from the shadows, and Clara realized that sometimes the most dangerous man in the room is the only one willing to save you. If you want to know what happens next, subscribe to my channel and follow Clara's journey to the very end. Drop a comment telling me which city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The gavel came down hard. Sold. Lot 22, 1 mare, $40. Clara Beckett flinched at the sound. Wood against wood, sharp as a gunshot. In 3 minutes, that gavel would fall for her. She pulled her children closer. 7 bodies pressed against hers like they could burrow inside her skin and hide there. The January wind tore through Silver Bend's town square, biting through her worn wool coat, through her patched dress, straight down to bone. "Mama," Grace tugged her sleeve. "I'm cold." "I know, baby." "Mama," Hope, Grace's twin, started crying. "I want to go home." Home. Clara almost laughed. They had no home. Not anymore. "Hush now." She knelt in the frozen mud, pulling both 4-year-olds against her chest. "We're gonna be fine. You hear me? We're gonna be just fine." She did not believe it. But mothers lie to their children. That is what love looks like sometimes. The auction platform stood 6 feet above the crowd. Wooden planks, rough and splintered. Clara had splinters in her palms from gripping the railing. She did not feel them anymore. She did not feel much of anything, except the cold and the fear. 43 men had walked past her today. 43. She had counted. Every single one. Some had laughed. Some had sneered. Most just looked away like she was something shameful, something they did not want to see. "Too fat," one had said loud enough for everyone to hear. "7 kids," another had whistled low. "Might as well buy a plague. Who'd want that? She'd eat you out of house and home." Clara had not cried. She had stopped crying 3 years ago, when Samuel died and left her with nothing but debt and 7 hungry mouths. Tears were a luxury. Tears did not feed children. "Lot 23, the auctioneer's voice rang out. Harold Finch, thin as a rail, spectacles perched on his nose, fingers stained with ink. He had not looked at Clara once. "Clara Josephine Beckett, widow, 34 years, 7 children, ages 4 to 14. A murmur rolled through the crowd. Not pity, something uglier. "Opening bid," Finch continued, $75. Includes all passage fees and provisional custody of minor children. Silence. Clara lifted her chin. Beside her, Abigail gripped her hand hard enough to hurt. 14 years old and already wearing the face of a woman who had seen too much. "Mama," Abigail's voice cracked, "nobody's bidding." "I know." "What do we do?" Clara squeezed her daughter's fingers. "We wait." "For what?" She had no answer. Benjamin stepped forward, his 12-year-old body rigid with fury. "I could work," he said through clenched teeth. "I could find a job in the mines. We don't need some stranger to—" "Ben," Clara's voice cut sharp. "Not now." "But Mama," "I said not now." He fell silent, but his fists stayed clenched at his sides, and his jaw trembled with rage he was too young to understand. Charlotte pressed against her brother. 10 years old, red hair wild beneath her bonnet, eyes blazing. "If anyone tries to take us," she whispered, "I'll bite 'em." Despite everything, Clara felt her mouth twitch. "That's my girl." $60. Finch dropped the price. "Surely someone needs a capable housekeeper." Nothing. Daniel started crying. 8 years old, thin as a reed, his father's brown eyes too big for his pale face. "Mama, they don't want us." "Danny, nobody wants us." His voice rose, cracking. "We're going to get split up. I heard them say it. They're going to take us away." "Daniel." Clara grabbed his shoulders, making him look at her. "Listen to me. Whatever happens today, you are my son. You will always be my son. No piece of paper changes that. You understand?" He nodded, tears streaming down his cheeks. Emma, 6 years old with golden curls, tugged at Clara's sleeve. "Mama, why is Danny crying?" "He's just scared, sweetheart." "I'm not scared." Emma's chin lifted. "You said we'd be okay. So we'll be okay. Right?" God, this child. This impossibly brave, impossibly trusting child. "Right," Clara whispered. "Right." Behind the platform, a gray-haired man in a territorial officer's uniform shuffled papers. Horace Webb. Clara had met him yesterday, had seen the way his eyes crawled over her body, had heard what he said when he thought she could not hear. "Fat cow won't fetch $10. We'll be splitting those brats up by sundown." Now Webb caught her eye and smiled, a thin, cruel smile that made her skin crawl. $50. Finch's voice pitched higher, desperate. "Final offer. A wife, a mother, 7 workers in one. Ain't nobody paying $50 for that." The voice came from the crowd. A big man in a beaver skin coat, arms crossed, tobacco juice staining his beard. "She's fat as a sow and twice as useless. Only thing them kids are good for is cheap labor." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Clara felt Abigail stiffen beside her, felt Benjamin's rage radiating like heat from a stove, felt her younger children shrink against her, trying to disappear. She straightened her spine, looked the man dead in the eye. "My children," she said, her voice carrying clear across the square, "are worth more than every man in this crowd combined." Silence. The man in the beaver coat blinked. Then his face twisted with anger. "Why, you uppity!" "Silas won't like that." The whisper came from somewhere in the crowd. Clara did not see who spoke, but she saw the reaction, heads turning, eyes shifting toward the back of the square. Silas. She had heard that name 3 times since arriving in Silverbend, each time spoken like a curse, each time followed by silence. Clara scanned the crowd. Near the general store, half hidden in shadow, a man stood watching. Tall, dark coat, face she could not quite see, but she felt his eyes on her. Heavy, hungry. A chill ran down her spine that had nothing to do with the cold. "Going once," Finch called weakly. Clara's heart slammed against her ribs. "Going twice." Abigail made a sound, a small, wounded animal sound. "Gone. $300. The voice came from nowhere and everywhere, deep as thunder, rough as gravel. Every head in the square turned. A man walked forward from the far edge of the crowd. Not the shadow near the store. Someone else. Someone Clara had not noticed before. He was tall, broad through the shoulders, dressed in buckskin and worn leather, a fur-lined coat hanging open despite the cold. Dark hair fell past his collar, streaked with gray. His face looked like it had been carved from granite, hard jaw, sharp cheekbones, a thin scar running from his left eye to his cheekbone. But it was his eyes that stopped Clara's breath. Gray, pale gray, like winter sky before a storm. And they were fixed on her. The crowd parted for him like water around a stone. Nobody touched him. Nobody spoke to him. They just moved aside, watching with eyes that held fear and something else. Recognition. "Did he say 300?" Finch's voice cracked.
"Sir, did you say—"
"You heard me." The man stopped at the base of the platform. His voice carried no warmth, but no cruelty either. Just fact. $300 gold for the woman and all 7 children. A gasp rippled through the crowd. "That's—" Finch swallowed hard. "That's 4 times the asking price." "I know what it is." Webb pushed forward, his face red. "Now hold on. There are procedures." "Then follow them." The stranger reached into his coat and pulled out a leather pouch. The coins inside clinked heavily. 300 in gold. Count it if you want, but count fast. Storm's coming, and I don't intend to be here when it hits. Clara stared at him. This stranger who had just paid a fortune for a woman the whole town called worthless. "Who are you?" The words came out before she could stop them. The man looked up at her. Those gray eyes held hers without flinching. "Name's Stone," he said. "Nathaniel Stone. Folks call me Nate." Behind Clara, Benjamin sucked in a breath. "Stone? The mountain man?" The stranger's mouth twitched, not quite a smile. "That what they call me?" "They say you killed—" Benjamin stopped when Clara squeezed his arm hard. Nate's expression did not change. "They say a lot of things." "Are they true?" Clara asked. "Some." He held her gaze. "I don't lie about what I am, ma'am. But I don't hurt women. I don't hurt children. And I keep my word." Clara felt her children pressing against her, felt their fear, their confusion, their desperate, fragile hope. "Why?" she asked. "Why would you pay $300 for a woman nobody wants?" Something shifted in those gray eyes, something old and heavy. "Because I know what it's like," he said quietly, "to be the one nobody wants." Clara's throat tightened. Before she could respond, Webb shouldered forward. "This is highly irregular. Mr. Stone has a reputation. Mr. Stone has gold." Finch was already counting coins, his fingers trembling with greed. "More than gold. This is all here. More than enough." "The sale stands," a new voice cut in. Everyone turned. Reverend Thomas Whitmore stood at the edge of the platform, 60 years old, white-haired, face lined with the kind of weariness that came from watching too many tragedies unfold. "The law is clear," Whitmore continued. "Highest bidder takes the contract, unless Mrs. Beckett objects." All eyes turned to Clara. She looked at Nate, at his scarred face and his storm-gray eyes, and his hands that looked capable of violence, but had not moved toward any weapon. She looked at her children. 7 faces, 7 lives. She looked at Webb and his papers, at the word she could read even from here. Orphan Placement Act. Work Farm Assignment. Foundling Home Transfer. "I don't object," Clara said clearly. "I accept." Nate nodded once. "Then let's go." The paperwork took minutes. Clara's hand shook as she signed. Clara Josephine Beckett. She wondered if she would ever write that name again. As she stepped down from the platform, a woman grabbed her arm. Helena Marsh, head of the Silver Bend Bride Society. Sharp face, sharper tongue. "You don't know what you're doing," Mrs. Marsh hissed. "That man is dangerous." Clara pulled her arm free. "That man just saved my children. He lives alone in the mountains, like an animal. He hasn't spoken to another soul in years. There are stories. There are always stories." Clara's voice hardened. "People told stories about me, too. That I was lazy, that I was worthless, that my children were burdens. That's different, is it? Clara stepped closer, her voice dropping low. Every person in this square looked at me today and saw something to throw away. That man looked at me and saw something worth saving. You want to tell me who I should trust? Mrs. Marsh's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Clara did not wait for her to find words. Nate had a wagon waiting at the edge of the square. 2 sturdy draft horses stamped in the cold, breath steaming. The wagon bed was loaded with supplies, sacks of flour, salt pork, blankets, tools. He lifted the younger children in one by one, Grace first, then Hope, settling them on a pile of blankets like they were made of glass. Emma climbed up herself, then turned to help Daniel. I can do it, Daniel muttered, embarrassed. I know you can, Emma said cheerfully. I'm helping anyway. Charlotte scrambled up without assistance, then stood with her hands on her hips, surveying the wagon bed. This'll do, she announced, like she was a queen inspecting her kingdom. Nate's mouth twitched again, that almost smile. He offered Clara his hand. She hesitated only a moment before taking it. His palm was rough, calloused, warm despite the cold. Thank you, she said quietly. Don't thank me yet. He helped her onto the wagon seat. It's a 2-day ride, hard country, and I don't make promises I can't keep. Neither do I. He looked at her. Something flickered in those gray eyes. Surprise, maybe. Or respect. Mama? Abigail's voice came from the wagon bed. There's a man watching us. Clara turned. Near the general store, the shadow she had noticed before had moved into the light. Silas Crow. She knew it without being told. Knew it from the way people avoided looking at him. From the way the air seemed colder where he stood. From the smile that curved his lips. A smile that did not reach his dark, dark eyes. He was handsome in a way that made her skin crawl. Dark hair slicked back. Fine coat despite the weather. A gold watch chain glinting at his vest. He tipped his hat to her, a mockery of courtesy. Mrs. Stone, he called across the square. Congratulations on your marriage. Clara felt Nate stiffen beside her. Crow, Nate's voice went flat, dangerous. We're leaving. So I see. Silas walked closer, hands in his pockets, that terrible smile never wavering. $300. That's quite an investment for... Well, his eyes slid over Clara. For damaged goods. Benjamin lunged forward in the wagon bed. You take that back. Clara grabbed his arm. Ben, no. But Mama, I know what he said. She kept her voice steady. And it doesn't matter. Silas laughed softly. Loyal children. That's good. Loyalty is valuable. His eyes moved to Abigail. Lingered there. Clara stepped between them, blocking his view. My children are not for sale. Everything's for sale, Mrs. Stone. Silas's smile widened. It's just a matter of finding the right price. Nate climbed onto the wagon seat. His hand rested on the rifle beside him. Casual. But Clara saw his knuckles go white. Walk away, Crow. Or what? Silas spread his hands. You'll shoot me? In front of all these good people? I'll do what needs doing. Nate picked up the reins. Same as always. For a long moment, nobody moved. The wind howled through the square. The crowd watched in silence. Then Silas stepped back, that smile never fading. Safe travels, Mrs. Stone. I'm sure we'll meet again. He turned and walked away. The crowd parted for him like they had parted for Nate, but differently. With Nate, it had been wariness. With Silas, it was fear. Clara let out a breath she did not know she had been holding. Nate snapped the reins. The horses lurched forward. Silverben fell away behind them. Clara did not look back. For 10 minutes, neither of them spoke. The wagon creaked. The horses' hooves crunched through frozen mud. The children whispered among themselves in the wagon bed. "Who is he?" Clara finally asked. "Silas Crow." Nate's jaw tightened. "A man who takes what he wants and hurts anyone who gets in his way." "What does he want?" "Power, money, women." Nate's hands flexed on the reins. "He owns half this territory through fear and debt, runs saloons, gambling halls, other businesses I won't name with children listening." Clara's stomach turned. He was looking at Abigail. "I know." "Will he come after us?" Nate was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was hard as iron. "Probably." Clara felt ice spread through her chest. "Then why did you bring us out here? Why not stay in town where there are people, witnesses?" "Because witnesses didn't stop him before." Nate looked at her. "And because my land is the only place in this territory he doesn't control." "How is that possible?" "Because he learned a long time ago that coming onto my property costs more than it's worth." Clara studied his profile, the hard set of his jaw, the scars on his face and hands, the way he held himself like a man who expected violence and was ready to meet it. "What happened?" she asked quietly. "Between you and him?" Nate did not answer for a long time. The wagon rolled on. The mountains grew closer. "He wanted something of mine," Nate finally said. "I didn't let him take it." "What did he want?" "Doesn't matter now." His voice closed the subject. "What matters is he knows better than to follow me home." Clara wanted to push, wanted answers, but something in his face stopped her. Instead, she turned to check on her children. They had arranged themselves in the wagon bed like a small army, Abigail in the center, Grace and Hope on her lap, Benjamin and Charlotte flanking them like guards. Daniel pressed against his sisters, pale but no longer crying. Emma sat at the tailgate, legs dangling, watching the road behind them. "Emma," Clara called, "sit properly, please." "I'm watching for bad men," Emma said cheerfully. "There are no bad men behind us." "Not yet," Emma grinned. "But if they come, I'll see 'em first." Charlotte snorted. "What are you going to do? Throw your bonnet at 'em?" "I'll throw rocks." "You can't throw worth beans." "Can too." "Cannot." "Girls." Clara's voice carried a warning. Both fell silent, for about 3 seconds. "I can throw better than Ben," Emma muttered. "Cannot." "Can too. Remember when—" "Enough!" Nate's voice cut through the argument. Not harsh, but firm. "Save your energy. You'll need it." The children went quiet, staring at this stranger who had bought their mother with gold coins and was now taking them into the mountains. Daniel spoke first, small voice, trembling. "Sir, where are we going?" Nate glanced back at him. "My homestead, 2 days north." "Is it nice?" "It's safe." "But is it nice?" Something shifted in Nate's face, almost soft. "It's home. That's better than nice." Daniel considered this, then nodded slowly. Hope started crying again. Grace joined her, as always. The twins did everything together, laughing, crying, sleeping. Clara had never been able to tell if it was comforting or concerning. "Mama," Grace reached for her. "I want up." Clara climbed into the wagon bed and gathered both twins in her lap. They burrowed against her immediately, small and warm and terrified. "Shh," she murmured. "Shh, we're safe now." "The scary man," Hope whimpered. "He looked at Abby mean." Clara's arms tightened around them. "He can't hurt us." "Promise?" There it was again, that word. Promise. "I promise," Clara said. Another lie. Another prayer dressed up as certainty. The wagon rolled on. The land changed as they climbed higher. Flat scrubland gave way to rolling hills, then steeper grades. Pine trees appeared, dark and silent. The wind picked up, carrying the smell of coming snow. Nate pulled a pocket watch from his coat, checked it, frowned. "Storm's moving faster than I thought." Clara looked at the sky. Dark clouds were piling up behind the mountains, thick and heavy. "How far to shelter?" 4 miles, maybe 5. He snapped the reins, urging the horses faster. "We'll make it, but it'll be close." The next hour passed in tense silence. The temperature dropped. The wind grew teeth. Snow began to fall, light at first, then heavier, swirling around the wagon like white curtains. Clara pulled blankets over the children, tucked them tight, counted heads over and over, a nervous habit she could not break. 7. Still 7. All still here. "Mama," Abigail's voice was strained. "Daniel's shivering." Clara looked. Her son's lips were turning blue. His thin body shook despite the blankets. "Danny," she pulled him against her. "Danny, look at me." His eyes were glassy. "Cold, Mama." "I know, baby, I know. Hold on, we're almost there." She looked at Nate. He was hunched forward, squinting through the snow, hands steady on the reins. "How much farther?" "Mile, maybe less." "He's freezing." Nate did not look back, but his voice changed, harder, faster. "There's a cabin ahead, old trapper's place. We'll make it." He snapped the reins again. The horses surged forward, heads down against the wind. Clara held Daniel tight, felt his small heart racing against her chest, felt his shivering grow worse. "Please," she thought. "Please, I cannot lose another one. I cannot." The snow thickened. The world turned white. And then, through the swirling chaos, a shape appeared. A cabin. Small. Dark. Half buried in drifts. But standing. "There!" Charlotte shouted. "I see it!" Nate pulled the wagon as close as he could. The horses were struggling now, hooves slipping on ice. "Everyone out!" He jumped down, already moving toward the cabin door. "Now!" Clara handed the twins to Abigail, grabbed Daniel in her arms. His body felt too light, too cold. She stumbled through the snow toward the cabin. The wind screamed in her ears. Ice stung her face. Nate had the door open. Dark inside, but dry. Out of the wind. "Get the children in," he ordered. "I'll start a fire." Clara did not argue. She carried Daniel inside, set him down near the stone hearth. The other children piled in behind her. Abigail with the twins, Benjamin carrying Emma on his back, Charlotte dragging blankets from the wagon. Within minutes, Nate had a fire going. Small at first, then growing, pushing back the cold. Daniel curled toward the flames, still shivering. Clara knelt beside him, rubbing his arms, his legs, trying to force warmth into his frozen body. "Stay with me, Danny. Stay with me." His eyes found hers. Mama? Are we safe?" She pulled him into her lap, held him against her heart. "Yes, baby, we're safe." Outside, the storm raged. Inside, 7 children huddled around a fire in a stranger's arms. And Clara Beckett, who had been called worthless by 43 men, held her son and watched Nathaniel Stone move through the cabin, checking windows, piling wood, hanging wet blankets to dry. He did not speak, did not offer comfort or false hope, but when he passed her, He paused, just for a moment. "He'll be all right," Nate said quietly. "The cold's bad, but not deep. Warmth and rest will fix him." Clara looked up at him, at this stranger who had bought her family and was now saving her son. "How do you know?" "Because I've seen worse." His gray eyes held hers. "And because that boy has his mother's strength. He'll fight." He moved away before she could respond. Clara held Daniel closer, watched the fire grow, listened to the storm howl outside. And somewhere in the chaos of fear and cold and desperate hope, she felt something she had not felt in 3 years. Not safety, not yet, but the possibility of it. The storm screamed on, but inside the cabin, Clara's children were warm, and for now, that was enough. Then Benjamin's voice cut through the silence. "Mama, someone's outside." Clara's blood turned to ice. Through the cabin's frost-covered window, she saw them. 3 riders emerging from the storm, moving toward the cabin. And even through the swirling snow, she recognized the man in front. Silas Crow had found them. Clara's heart stopped. 3 riders, 3 dark shapes cutting through the white curtain of snow, moving slow but steady toward the cabin. "Mama?" Benjamin's voice cracked. "Mama, what do we do?" Clara did not answer. Her eyes found Nate across the cabin. He was already moving, rifle in hand, face carved from stone. "Get the children away from the windows," he said quietly. "All of them. Now." Clara's body moved before her mind caught up. She gathered Daniel in her arms, still weak, but warming. "Abigail, take your brothers and sisters to the back corner, behind the woodpile." "But, Mama—" "Now, Abby." Abigail's face went pale, but she obeyed. She grabbed Hope and Grace, one twin on each hip, and herded the others toward the darkest corner of the cabin. Benjamin tried to resist. "I should stay. I can fight." "You can protect your sisters." Clara gripped his shoulders hard. "That's your job right now. You hear me? You keep them quiet, and you keep them safe." Benjamin's jaw trembled, but he nodded and followed Abigail. Clara turned back to the window. The riders were closer now, close enough to see faces. Silas Crow rode in front. Even through the storm, she could see his smile. That terrible, hungry smile. "Stone!" Silas's voice carried over the wind. "I know you're in there. Come on out, and let's talk like civilized men." Nate positioned himself by the door. His rifle rested easy in his hands, but his eyes were sharp as broken glass. "Stay behind me," he told Clara. "I'm not hiding." "Didn't ask you to hide." He glanced at her. "Asked you to stay behind me. There's a difference." Clara moved to his left side, close enough to see through the gap in the door planks, close enough to feel the cold seeping through. "What does he want?" she whispered. "What he always wants. Everything." Outside, Silas dismounted. His 2 men stayed on their horses, hands resting on their gun belts. One was big, bearded, mean-looking. The other was thin and twitchy, eyes darting everywhere. "Stone!" Silas called again. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I just want to talk." Nate's voice came out flat and cold. "Say what you came to say, then leave." "Now that's not very hospitable." Silas spread his hands wide. "Inviting a man to stand out in a blizzard? I thought mountain folk had better manners." "You're not a guest. You're a trespasser." Silas laughed. The sound made Clara's skin crawl. "Trespasser? This ain't your land, Stone. This is territorial property. Public cabin. I got as much right to shelter here as you do." He took a step closer. Nate raised the rifle. "That's far enough." Silas stopped. His smile did not waver, but something flickered in his dark eyes. Calculation. Assessment. "You won't shoot me," he said. "Not in front of all those children." What kind of example would that set? The kind that keeps them alive. Behind Clara, she heard Hope whimper. Grace shushed her with a small, frightened sound. Silas's eyes moved past Nate, past Clara, into the shadows of the cabin. 7 children, he said softly. That's quite a brood, Mrs. Stone. Must be hard, keeping them all fed, all warm, all safe. Clara's hands curled into fists. My children are none of your concern. Oh, but they are. Silas took another step. Nate's finger tightened on the trigger, but Silas stopped just at the edge of shooting distance. See, I'm a businessman, and I see opportunity everywhere I look. Those boys of yours, they're strong. They could work my mines. Good wages, honest labor. No. And those girls, his eyes gleamed. Pretty things, especially the oldest. What's her name? Abigail? Clara moved before she could stop herself. She grabbed Nate's arm, not to hold him back, but to steady herself, because if she did not hold on to something, she was going to run out into that storm and tear Silas Crow apart with her bare hands. You stay away from my daughter! Silas raised an eyebrow. Such fire! I like that. He tilted his head. Tell you what, I'll make you a deal. Come with me willingly, you and the children, and I'll let Stone here walk away. No harm done, no blood spilled. And if I refuse? Then things get complicated. Silas glanced at his men. See, I've got 2 guns behind me. More back in town. Stone's good, I'll grant him that. But he's not that good. And even if he is, he shrugged, bullets don't care about skill. They just care about numbers. Nate's voice cut through the tension like a blade. You're forgetting something, Crow. Oh? What's that? I don't have to be good enough to beat all of you. Nate's eyes locked onto Silas. Cold. Certain. I just have to be good enough to kill you first. For the first time, Silas's smile faltered. You'd die, he said, right after. Maybe, Nate shrugged, but you'd be dead. And dead men don't collect debts, don't run businesses, don't hurt women and children. He paused. You willing to bet your life on how fast I can pull this trigger? Silence. The storm howled around them. Snow swirled and screamed. But inside that bubble of tension, everything was still. Clara watched Silas's face, watched him calculate, watched him weigh his greed against his fear. This ain't over, Silas said finally. It is for tonight. The storm won't last forever, Stone, and neither will your luck. He turned and walked back to his horse, mounted up slow, deliberate, like he had all the time in the world. I'll be seeing you, Mrs. Stone, he called over his shoulder. You and those pretty children of yours. Then he kicked his horse forward, and the 3 riders disappeared into the white. Clara's legs gave out. She slumped against the wall, sliding down until she was sitting on the cold floor. Her whole body shook, not from cold, from something deeper. Clara! Nate was beside her in an instant, rifle still in hand. Clara, look at me. She looked up. His gray eyes were steady, anchoring. They're gone, he said. For now. For now. The words tasted like ash. He'll come back. Yes. He wants my children. I know. He wants... Her voice broke. He looked at Abigail like she was... I know. Nate's voice hardened. He won't touch her. Won't touch any of them. I swear it. How? Clara grabbed his arm. How can you promise that? You saw him. You saw what he is. He has men, money, power. What do we have? Nate was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "We have higher ground." What? My homestead, Stone's Haven. It's built on a ridge, only one way up. A man can hold that position against 20 if he knows what he's doing. He met her eyes. I know what I'm doing.
But,
Mama! Emma's voice cut through the cabin. Clara scrambled to her feet, heart lurching. Her children were emerging from behind the woodpile. Abigail first, still carrying the twins. Benjamin and Charlotte supporting Daniel between them. Emma running ahead, her small face fierce. Mama, is the bad man gone? Clara opened her arms. Emma crashed into her, wrapping small arms around her waist. He's gone, baby. He's gone. I wasn't scared. Emma's voice was muffled against Clara's dress. Well, maybe a little, but I didn't cry. I know you didn't. Clara stroked her golden curls. My brave girl. One by one, the others gathered around her. Abigail pressed close, the twins still in her arms. Benjamin stood rigid, trying to look strong. Charlotte had somehow found a piece of firewood and was holding it like a club. Daniel leaned against his mother, still weak but steady now. Is he really gone? Grace asked, her 4-year-old voice small and scared. Yes, sweetheart. Is he coming back? Hope asked, always echoing her twin. Clara hesitated. He might try, Nate said, answering for her, but he'll have to go through me first. The children looked at him. This strange mountain man who had appeared from nowhere and bought their mother like she was something precious. Daniel spoke first. Mr. Stone? Yeah? Are you really as dangerous as they say? Nate studied the boy for a long moment. Then he crouched down to Daniel's level. I've done things, he said quietly. Things I'm not proud of. But I've never hurt anyone who didn't deserve it. And I've never... His voice caught, just for a second. I've never let harm come to a child under my roof. Daniel considered this with the seriousness only an 8-year-old could muster. Then he nodded. Okay, he said. I believe you. Something shifted in Nate's face. Something soft and surprised, like he had not expected to be believed. Thank you, he said quietly. Charlotte stepped forward, still holding her firewood club. I don't believe you. Charlie, Clara started, but Nate held up a hand. That's fair, he told Charlotte. Trust is earned, not given. You keep that club handy. Anyone comes through that door who shouldn't, you swing hard. Charlotte blinked, then a grin spread across her face. I like you, she announced. Benjamin had not moved from his position near the wall. His fists were still clenched, his jaw still tight. Why did he want us? Benjamin's voice was raw. That man, Crow, why did he want us so bad? Clara reached for him. Ben. No, he pulled away. I'm not a child, Mama. I heard what he said. About the mines. About... He swallowed hard. About Abby. Abigail made a small sound. She pressed the twins closer against her chest. He's a bad man, Clara said carefully. He sees people as things to be used. That's all. But why us? We're nobody. We're nothing. Why would someone like that care about... Because you're not nothing. Nate's voice cut through Benjamin's spiral. Because your mother stood up on that platform and looked down at an entire town that called her worthless, and she never flinched. Men like Crow, they notice that. They notice strength, and they either want to own it or destroy it. Benjamin stared at him. So, we're in danger because Mama's strong? You're in danger because evil men exist. Nate stood up. But you'll survive because your mother's strong, and because I won't let anything happen to this family. Why? Benjamin demanded. Why do you care? You don't know us. You bought Mama like she was a horse at auction. Why should we trust you? Ben, Clara's voice sharpened. That's enough. No, Mama, I want to know. Why did he pay $300 for us? Nobody does something like that for nothing. What does he want? The cabin fell silent. Clara looked at Nate. He stood still, shoulders rigid, face unreadable. Tell him, she said quietly. Tell all of them. They deserve to know. Nate was quiet for a long moment. Then he moved to the fire, adding another log, his back to the room. 8 years ago, he said finally, I had a family. A wife named Sarah, a daughter named Mary. She was 3 years old when the fever took her. It took Sarah too. 3 days. That's all it took to destroy everything I loved. No one spoke. I came west to die, Nate continued. Built that homestead thinking I'd work myself into the grave. But the body's stubborn. It keeps going even when the heart wants to stop. He turned to face them. I spent 8 years alone. 8 years of silence. 8 years of wondering why I was still breathing when they weren't. His gray eyes found Clara's. Then I saw you on that platform. A woman, holding her children together while the whole world tried to tear them apart. A woman who didn't break even when they called her worthless. And I thought... He paused. I thought maybe there was a reason I was still here. Clara felt tears burning in her eyes. She blinked them back. You wanted to save us, she whispered. I wanted to matter to someone again. His voice was rough. I wanted to protect something worth protecting. I don't expect love. I don't expect trust. He shook his head. I just wanted to stop being dead inside. Abigail was crying now, silent tears rolling down her cheeks. The twins pressed closer against her, confused but quiet. Benjamin's fists slowly unclenched. You lost your daughter, he said, his voice different now, softer. She was younger than Danny. Yes. What was she like? The question seemed to hit Nate like a physical blow. He looked away, jaw working. She had her mother's eyes, he said finally. Brown. Warm. She laughed at everything. Even when she was sick, she laughed. His voice cracked. I haven't heard a child laugh in 8 years. Emma stepped forward, the youngest besides the twins, the bravest of them all. I can laugh, she said, if you want. Nate looked at her. This 6-year-old girl with golden curls and a smile that could light up the darkest room. I don't, he started. Emma didn't wait. She giggled, loud and bright and completely ridiculous given the circumstances. Charlotte snorted. That's not a real laugh. This is a real laugh. She started cackling like a chicken being chased. That's terrible, Benjamin said, and despite himself, he cracked a smile. Daniel started giggling. The twins, sensing the shift in mood, joined in with their high-pitched squeals. And Clara felt her heart crack open. She laughed. It bubbled up from somewhere deep inside, somewhere she had forgotten existed. A real laugh. Her first in years. Nate stood frozen, watching them. His mouth opened, closed, opened again, and then... He smiled. Not much, just a twitch of the lips, a softening around those hard gray eyes. But it was real. You're all crazy, he said gruffly. Probably, Charlotte agreed. Mama says it runs in the family. I did not say that. You thought it. Charlotte Marie Beckett, Stone, Charlotte corrected. We're Stones now, right? That's how it works? Clara hesitated. She looked at Nate. He cleared his throat. Legally, yeah. But you don't have to. I like it, Charlotte nodded firmly. Charlotte Stone. Sounds like someone who'd punch a bad guy. It sounds like trouble, Benjamin muttered. Trouble's good, Charlotte shot back. Keeps things interesting. You would think that. Better than being boring like you. I'm not boring. I'm responsible. Same thing. It is not enough. Clara's voice was tired but warm. Both of you. We're stuck in this cabin until the storm passes. We might as well not kill each other. The children settled, still bickering in low voices, but no longer sharp with fear. Clara watched them arrange themselves around the fire. Abigail finding a corner to rest with the twins. Benjamin checking the woodpile. Charlotte teaching Emma how to properly hold her club. Daniel curling up under a blanket near the hearth. Nate sat by the door, rifle across his knees, eyes on the darkness outside. Clara moved to sit beside him. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For telling them. For being honest. He shrugged. They deserved the truth. They deserved a choice, and you gave them one. He looked at her. In the firelight, his face was all harsh angles and deep shadows. But his eyes, those gray eyes, were soft. You're stronger than you know, he said. All of you. We've had to be. That's not the same thing. He shook his head. Having to be strong is survival. Choosing to stay strong when you could break, that's something else. That's courage. Clara felt warmth spread through her chest. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? A monster. That's what they said you were. A killer. A madman who lived in the mountains because civilized folk couldn't stand him. Some of that's true. Which parts? He was quiet for a long moment. I killed men in the war, too many to count. Came home with blood on my hands and nightmares in my head. Couldn't stand to be around people after that. Every loud noise made me jump. Every stranger made me reach for a weapon. Sarah, he paused. Sarah was the only one who could calm me. When she died, I had no reason to stay among the living. But you stayed. My body did. Rest of me was gone. He looked at the fire. Being alone for 8 years, it changes a man. Makes him hard. Makes him forget what it's like to have something worth protecting. I thought I was doing fine. Thought I'd made peace with it. Then I saw you on that platform, and I realized I've been dead the whole time. Just too stubborn to lie down. Clara reached out. Slowly, carefully, she placed her hand over his. He flinched. A tiny movement, but she felt it. I'm sorry. She started to pull back. His hand turned over, caught hers, held it gently. Don't be. His voice was rough. It's been a long time since anyone touched me like that. Like I was human. They sat in silence. The fire crackled. The storm raged outside. The children whispered and giggled and slowly fell asleep. We're going to make it, Clara said finally. Aren't we? Nate squeezed her hand. Yeah, we are. Somewhere in the night, the storm began to fade. Clara dozed against Nate's shoulder, exhausted beyond measure. She dreamed of Samuel, not the sick, wasted man he'd become at the end, but the young carpenter who'd swept her off her feet at a church dance in Boston. He was smiling at her, telling her something important. Take care of our babies, Clara. They need you. I know. And let yourself be loved again. You deserve it. She woke to gray light filtering through the cabin's single window. The storm had passed. The world outside was silent, buried under fresh snow. Nate was still beside her, awake, watching the dawn. "How long was I asleep?" she asked, straightening. "Few hours." "You should have woken me." "You needed rest." She looked around the cabin. Her children were scattered across the floor, bundled in blankets, sleeping soundly. Even Benjamin, who always had trouble sleeping, was curled up near the woodpile, mouth open, drool pooling on his sleeve. "They look peaceful," she said. "First time they felt safe in a while, I reckon." Clara watched them breathe, in and out, in and out. 7 lives depending on her. 7 hearts she would die to protect. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we dig out, check the horses, get back on the road." Nate stood, stretching muscles stiff from a night on hard ground. "My homestead's still a day away. We should make it before nightfall if the weather holds." "And Silas?" Nate's face hardened. "He'll lick his wounds for now. Man like that doesn't like being challenged. He'll want revenge." "How long do we have?" "Week, maybe. He'll need to gather men, make a plan. Crow's smart. He won't come at us direct. He'll find another angle." Clara stood, brushing dirt from her skirt. "Then we have a week to prepare." Nate looked at her. Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, respect, something warmer. "You're not scared?" "Terrified," she met his gaze. "But I stopped letting fear make my decisions a long time ago." He nodded slowly. "Good, because what's coming won't be easy." "Nothing worth having ever is." They woke the children one by one. Abigail first, who immediately started checking on her siblings. Then Benjamin, grumpy and sore, but determined. Charlotte bounced up like she'd slept in a feather bed, ready to conquer the world. Daniel coughed a few times, but seemed stronger than yesterday. Emma helped the twins get untangled from their blankets, bossing them with cheerful authority. "Mama?" Grace tugged at Clara's hand. "I'm hungry." "Me too," Hope echoed. "I know, babies. We'll eat soon." Nate produced hardtack and dried beef from his supplies. Not much, but enough. The children ate without complaint, a luxury they had learned never to expect. "Mr. Stone?" Daniel's voice was quiet. "Yeah? Is your house big?" "Big enough." "Will we all have beds?" Nate paused, considering. "There's 2 rooms, my room and a main room. We'll figure out sleeping arrangements when we get there." "Will we have to share?" Charlotte made a face. "I don't want to share with Emma. She kicks." "I do not." "You do too. You kicked me right in the stomach last week." "That was an accident." "Girls," Clara's voice carried warning. Nate's mouth twitched. "You might have to share for a while, but I can build more rooms. Cabin's got space to expand." "You can build things?" Benjamin asked, interested despite himself. "Built the whole homestead myself. Cabin, barn, fences, everything." "Could you teach me?" The question hung in the air. Clara held her breath. Nate looked at Benjamin, at this 12-year-old boy trying so hard to be a man. "If you want to learn," he said finally, "I'll teach you." Benjamin's face changed. The hostility, the suspicion, the fear. It didn't disappear, but something else pushed through. Something like hope. "I want to learn," he said. "Then we'll start when we get home." Home. The word echoed through the cabin. Clara gathered her children. One by one she checked them, smoothing hair, adjusting coats, counting fingers and toes like she had when they were newborns. 7. All 7. Still here. "Ready?" Nate asked from the door. Clara looked at him, at this scarred, silent man who had bought her for $300 and was now leading her into the wilderness. "Ready," she said. They stepped out into the new-fallen snow. The world was white and silent, trees heavy with frost, mountains rising in the distance like giants keeping watch. The wagon had survived the night, buried but intact. Nate dug it out while Benjamin helped with the horses. Charlotte threw snowballs at Daniel until Clara made her stop. Emma built a tiny snowman while the twins watched with wide eyes. "Mama?" Abigail appeared at her side, voice low. "Can I talk to you?" Clara stepped away from the others. "What is it, sweetheart?" Abigail's face was pale, her hands twisted together in her threadbare gloves. "That man, Crow, he looked at me like—" She stopped, swallowed. "Like Papa's boss used to look at me, before Papa died." Clara's blood turned to ice. "What did Papa's boss do?" "Nothing." Papa caught him staring, and we left that job the next week. But Mama, the way Crow looked at me, it was the same. Like I was something to eat. Clara pulled her daughter close, held her tight, felt the trembling in that too thin body. "Listen to me," she said fiercely. "That man will never touch you. Never. Do you understand? I will burn down the entire territory before I let him anywhere near you." "But what if—" "There is no what if." Clara pulled back, gripping Abigail's shoulders. "You are my daughter, my firstborn. I carried you under my heart for 9 months, and I have loved you every single day since. No man, not Crow, not anyone, will ever take you from me. I swear it on your father's grave." Abigail's eyes filled with tears. "I'm scared, Mama." "I know, baby. I'm scared too. But we're going to get through this. Together." "You promise?" There it was again, that word. Promise. Clara had promised Daniel they would be safe, had promised Emma everything would be okay, had promised Hope and Grace that the bad man was gone. Lies, all of them. Prayers dressed up as certainty. But this one felt different. "I promise," Clara said, and this time she meant it. The wagon rolled north through the frozen landscape. Clara sat on the seat beside Nate, watching the mountains grow closer. Behind them, the children huddled under blankets, exhausted, but alive. "Thank you," Clara said quietly. Nate glanced at her. "For what?" "For everything," she paused. "For being the man who stepped forward when everyone else walked away." He was silent for a long moment. The horses plodded on, breath steaming in the cold air. "I should be thanking you," he said finally. "Me? For what?" "For saying yes." He looked at her then, those gray eyes unguarded for once. "For trusting a stranger with your children's lives. For giving me a reason to be alive." Clara felt her heart squeeze. "We're not there yet," she said softly. "We've got a long way to go." "I know," he turned back to the road. "But for the first time in 8 years, I want to get there. That's something." The wagon rolled on. Behind them, Silverbend disappeared into the snow. Ahead, the mountains waited. And somewhere in between, Clara Beckett began to imagine a future she had never let herself dream of. A home. A family. A man who looked at her like she was worth fighting for. The sun climbed higher, turning the snow to diamonds, and Clara, holding her children close, let herself hope. The sun was sinking behind the mountains when Nate pulled the wagon to a stop. "There," he said quietly. "That's home." Clara looked up, her breath caught in her throat. The homestead sat on a ridge overlooking a small valley. A cabin built of hand-hewn logs, solid and square. A barn to the left, fenced pasture beyond. Smoke rising from a stone chimney. mountains standing guard on three sides like ancient sentinels. "Mama," Emma's voice was hushed. "It's beautiful." Clara could not speak. She had expected a shack, a rough shelter barely fit for animals. She had prepared herself for hardship, for suffering, for survival at its most basic. She had not prepared for this. "You built all of this?" Benjamin asked, disbelief cracking his voice. "By yourself?" Nate shrugged. "Had 8 years and nothing but time. But the cabin alone must have taken 2 years for the main structure, another 6 months for the barn. Fences took 3 summers. He clicked the reins and the horses moved forward. "Work goes slow when you're alone." Clara felt something shift in her chest. This was not just a homestead. This was 8 years of grief poured into wood and stone. 8 years of a man trying to build something, anything, to fill the emptiness inside him. The wagon rolled up the narrow trail to the ridge. As they climbed, Clara noticed details she had missed from below. A vegetable garden, dormant now but neatly fenced. A chicken coop. A smokehouse. A well with a sturdy wooden cover. Everything placed with purpose. Everything built to last. "There's only one way up," Nate said, gesturing to the trail behind them. "Cliff drops on the other 3 sides. A man with a rifle could hold this position against an army." "Is that why you built here?" Clara asked. "Partly." He pulled the wagon to a stop in front of the cabin. "Mostly, I just liked the view." Charlotte scrambled out of the wagon before anyone could stop her. She ran to the edge of the ridge and stood there, red hair whipping in the wind, staring out at the valley below. "I can see forever," she shouted. "Mama, come look. I can see the whole world." "Charlotte, get away from that edge." "She's fine." Nate climbed down and offered Clara his hand. "Ground's solid there. I checked it 100 times. Clara hesitated, then took his hand, let him help her down. "Why did you check it 100 times?" Nate's jaw tightened. "Mary used to run to that spot every morning. Said she could see angels in the clouds." Clara's heart clenched. "Oh, Nate." "It's all right." His voice was gruff. "It was a long time ago." But it wasn't all right. She could see it in his eyes. 8 years, and the wound was still raw. The children piled out of the wagon, one by one. Abigail carrying the twins, Benjamin helping Daniel, Emma already chasing Charlotte toward the edge before Clara's sharp voice stopped her. "Emma Marie, you stay where I can see you." "But Mama." "No buts. Stay close." Nate moved to the cabin door. He paused with his hand on the latch. "It's not much," he said. "Been living alone a long time. Probably doesn't look like a place fit for children." "Let us be the judge of that," Clara said. He pushed open the door. The inside was dim, lit only by the fading sunlight through 2 small windows. Clara stepped in, letting her eyes adjust. A stone fireplace dominated one wall, cold now but clean. A rough-hewn table with 2 chairs, a bed in the corner, neatly made with a worn quilt. Shelves lined with supplies, flour, salt, dried beans. Hooks on the wall holding tools, a coat, a spare rifle. Everything was clean. Everything was ordered. Everything was lonely. "Like I said," Nate muttered, "not much." Clara walked to the center of the room, turned slowly, taking it all in. "It's perfect," she said. Nate blinked. "What?" "It's solid. It's warm. It's safe." She met his eyes. "After everything we've been through, that's all that matters." "But there's only one bed. Only 2 chairs. I don't have—" "We'll manage." Clara turned to her children, crowding in the doorway. "We've slept on factory floors. We've gone weeks without chairs. This is a palace compared to where we've been." Benjamin looked around, his face unreadable. "Where will we all sleep?" "We'll figure it out." Clara started rolling up her sleeves. "First, we need a fire, then food, then we'll worry about beds." Nate stood frozen, watching her move through his cabin like she belonged there, like she had always belonged there. "I can start the fire," he said finally. "Good. Abigail, help me with the supplies. Benjamin, bring in the blankets from the wagon. Charlotte and Emma, you're on water duty. There's a well outside. Daniel, you sit by the fire and rest. You're still recovering." "But Mama, I want to help." "You are helping. You're getting strong so you can help more tomorrow." Within an hour, the cabin had transformed. A fire roared in the hearth, casting warm light across the room. The table was covered with supplies being sorted and organized. Children's voices filled the space, bickering, laughing, asking questions. Nate stood by the door, watching like a man who had wandered into someone else's dream. "Mr. Stone?" Grace tugged at his pants leg. "Are you okay?" He looked down at the 4-year-old. Her gray eyes, so like his own, stared up at him with concern. "I'm fine," he said gruffly. "You look scared." "I'm not scared. My mama says it's okay to be scared sometimes." Grace tilted her head. "She says being scared just means you care about something." Nate crouched down to her level. "Your mama's a smart woman." "I know," Grace smiled. "Are you going to be our new papa?" The question hit Nate like a punch to the gut. He stopped, looked at Clara across the room. She had frozen, her hands still on a sack of flour, her eyes on him. "I don't know," Nate said honestly. "That's up to your mama." Grace considered this. "Okay, but I hope you are. You have nice eyes." She skipped away to join her twin, leaving Nate crouched on the floor, struggling to remember how to breathe. Clara appeared beside him. "Sorry about that. Grace says whatever comes into her head." "It's fine," he stood slowly. She's a good kid." "They all are," Clara paused. "She's right, though. You do have nice eyes." Nate felt heat crawl up his neck. I should check on the horses." He fled before Clara could respond. Outside, the cold air hit him like a slap. He leaned against the barn door, pressing his palms against the rough wood, forcing himself to breathe. 8 years. 8 years alone, and now his cabin was full of children, full of laughter, full of life. He didn't know if he could do this. He didn't know if he could bear to lose it again. "You all right?" He turned. Benjamin stood a few feet away, a bucket in each hand. "Fine," Nate said. "Just needed air." Benjamin nodded slowly. "It's a lot. All of us, I mean. We're a lot." "You're not a lot." "We are, though." Benjamin set down the buckets and leaned against the fence. 7 kids, Mama with no husband, nothing but the clothes on our backs and a wagon full of trouble. He kicked at a rock. "You didn't know what you were getting into." "I knew exactly what I was getting into." "Then why?" Benjamin's voice cracked. "Why us? Why pay $300 for a family that's nothing but problems?" Nate was quiet for a long moment. He looked at the mountains, black against the darkening sky. "You know what it's like to be alone?" he asked finally. Benjamin shook his head. "It's quiet. Real quiet. At first you think you like it. No one bothering you. No one needing anything from you. Just you and the wind and the work. Sounds peaceful. It is, for a while." Nate turned to face him. "Then one day you wake up and you realize you haven't spoken to another human being in 3 months. You realize you've forgotten what your own voice sounds like. You realize that if you died tomorrow, no one would know. No one would care. You'd just rot in that cabin until some trapper stumbled across your bones. Benjamin said nothing. That's not peace, Nate continued. That's death. Slow death. The kind that kills you from the inside while your body keeps walking around. He paused. Your family isn't problem, son. Your family is life. Loud, messy, complicated life. And I'd rather have that than one more day of quiet. Benjamin's eyes glistened in the fading light. My pa died 3 years ago, he said quietly. I was 9. I tried to take care of Mama and the others, but I couldn't. I wasn't big enough, wasn't strong enough. I watched them go hungry because I couldn't find work. Watched Mama sell everything we owned just to keep us fed. His voice broke. I'm supposed to be the man of the family, and I failed. You didn't fail. I did. If I'd been stronger... Benjamin, Nate stepped forward, gripping the boy's shoulder. You were 9 years old. 9. And you tried to carry a burden that grown men couldn't handle. That's not failure. That's courage. But I couldn't. Listen to me. Nate's voice was fierce. You kept going. That's what matters. You didn't give up. You didn't abandon your family. You stayed and you fought. And you're still fighting. That makes you more of a man than half the fools in that town who walked past your mother. Benjamin's tears spilled over. He didn't try to hide them. I don't know how to stop being scared, he whispered. I've been scared for so long, I don't remember what anything else feels like. You don't stop being scared. You just learn to move anyway. Nate squeezed his shoulder. And now you don't have to do it alone. Benjamin wiped his face roughly. You really want us here? All of us? I really do. Even when Charlotte won't stop talking, and the twins cry at everything, and Emma asks 1,000 questions? Nate's mouth twitched. Even then. Benjamin was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded slowly. Okay, he said. Okay. I'll try. That's all anyone can do. They walked back to the cabin together. The door opened to warmth and light and the smell of something cooking over the fire. There you are, Clara called. I was about to send the search party. Benjamin, wash your hands. Dinner's almost ready. Yes, Mama. Nate hesitated in the doorway. Clara had transformed his cold, empty cabin into something unrecognizable. Blankets spread across the floor for the children. Clothes hanging near the fire to dry. Food laid out on the table. Simple fare, but warm. Don't just stand there, Clara said without looking up. Come eat. He came. Dinner was chaos. 7 children talking over each other, reaching for food, arguing about who got the bigger piece of bread. Clara moved through it like a general commanding troops. A sharp word here, a gentle touch there, somehow keeping order without raising her voice. Nate watched, fascinated. You're good at this, he said quietly, leaning close so only she could hear. Practice. She handed Hope a cup of water. 14 years of practice. It doesn't get easier? Oh, it gets easier, but it never gets quiet. She smiled. I stopped wanting quiet a long time ago. After dinner, Clara settled the children for bed. The younger ones first. Grace and Hope curled together like puppies. Emma sprawled between them. Daniel next, still pale, but no longer shivering. Then Charlotte, who protested loudly before falling asleep mid-sentence. Benjamin insisted on staying up to keep watch. Clara didn't argue. She just handed him a blanket and told him to wake Nate if he heard anything. Abigail sat by the fire, mending a tear in Daniel's shirt. Her hands moved with practiced ease, but her eyes were distant. Abby, Clara sat beside her. What's wrong? Nothing. Abigail. Her daughter sighed, set down the needle. I keep thinking about what that man said. Crow. She hugged herself. About how everything's for sale. About finding the right price. Clara's stomach tightened. He was trying to scare us. It worked. Abigail's voice trembled.
Mama, what if he comes back? What if he finds a way to get to us? What if—
He won't.
You don't know that.
I know Nate will protect us.
Nate is one man. Crow has dozens.
Nate has us. Clara gripped her daughter's hands. Listen to me. We are not helpless. We are not victims. We are survivors. And we will fight for each other with everything we have.
But I'm scared, Mama.
I know, baby. So am I. Clara pulled her close. But being scared together is better than being scared alone. Abigail buried her face in her mother's shoulder. For a moment, she was not 14 and too grown. She was just a child, seeking comfort in the only place that had ever been safe.
I love you, Mama.
I love you too, sweetheart, more than you'll ever know. After Abigail fell asleep, Clara found Nate outside on the porch. He sat on an old wooden chair, rifle across his knees, watching the darkness. You should sleep, she said, settling beside him.
Can't, not tonight.
Crow?
Maybe. Maybe just have it.
He shifted the rifle. I haven't had anyone to protect in a long time. Feels strange to have something to lose again. Clara was quiet for a moment. The stars were thick above them, brighter than anything she had ever seen in the city. Can I ask you something? Anything. Why didn't you remarry after Sarah died? You're not old. You're not ugly. You could have found someone else. Nate stared at the sky. Didn't want anyone else. You didn't want to be alone for 8 years? No, but I figured being alone was better than losing someone again. He paused. I was wrong. What changed your mind? You. He turned to look at her. Standing on that platform, holding your children together, looking at that crowd like you dared them to break you. His voice softened. I thought, there's a woman who understands, who knows what it's like to lose everything and keep going anyway. Clara felt tears prick her eyes.
I didn't feel strong up there. I felt terrified.
That's what makes it strong, being terrified and standing anyway. She reached out, took his hand. This time, he didn't flinch. I don't know what's going to happen, Clara said quietly. I don't know if Crow will come back. I don't know if we'll survive here. I don't know anything anymore. She squeezed his fingers. But I know I'm glad you found us. Clara. His voice was rough. Yes? He turned to face her fully. In the starlight, his eyes were silver. I can't promise you love. I don't know if I remember how. But I can promise you safety. I can promise that as long as I'm breathing, no one will hurt you or your children. And I can promise to try. He swallowed. To try to be something worth caring about. Clara lifted her hand to his face, touched the scar on his cheek, gently, like she was touching something precious. You're already worth caring about, she whispered. You just forgot. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Nate leaned forward, pressed his forehead against hers, breathed. I'm scared, he admitted. I know. She smiled through her tears. So am I. They stayed like that as the stars wheeled overhead, not kissing, not speaking, just breathing together. Two broken people finding something whole in the space between them. When Clara finally stood to go inside, Nate caught her hand. Clara? Yes? Welcome home. She smiled. A real smile. Her first in years. Thank you, Nate, for everything. She went inside, lay down among her sleeping children, let their warmth and breath wash over her. And for the first time since Samuel died, Clara Beckett, Clara Stone, felt like maybe, just maybe, everything would be all right. But peace never lasts forever. 3 days later, Charlotte came running from the ridge trail, screaming,
"Mama! Mama! Riders coming! Lots of them!"
Clara's blood turned to ice. She ran to the edge of the ridge, looked down. Dust rising from the valley. Horses moving fast. A dozen men, maybe more. And at the front, riding a black horse, wearing that terrible smile, Silas Crow. He had found them. Clara's heart pounded so hard she could feel it in her teeth. 12 riders, maybe more. Dust clouds rising behind them as they wound up the narrow trail toward the ridge. "Nate!" she screamed, already running toward the cabin. "Nate!" He burst through the door before she reached it, rifle in hand, face carved from granite. "I see them." His voice was calm. Too calm. "Get the children inside. Bar the door."
"Nate!"
"Now, Clara." She didn't argue. She ran. The children were scattered across the yard. Charlotte frozen by the ridge edge. Benjamin hauling water from the well. Abigail hanging laundry with Emma and the twins playing at her feet. Daniel sitting on the porch, whittling a stick with the knife Nate had given him.
"Inside!"
Clara's voice cracked like a whip.
"Everyone inside! Now!"
They moved. Thank God, they moved. 3 days of safety had not dulled their survival instincts. Abigail scooped up both twins in one motion. Benjamin dropped the bucket and grabbed Daniel. Charlotte sprinted across the yard, red hair flying. Emma stumbled on a rock, and Clara caught her, swept her up, kept running. Within 30 seconds, all 7 children were in the cabin. Clara slammed the door, threw the heavy wooden bar across it.
"Mama?"
Grace's voice trembled.
"What's happening?"
"Bad men coming." Clara moved to the window, peeking through a crack in the shutters.
"Stay away from the windows. Stay low." "The man from before?"
Hope whispered.
"The scary man?"
"Yes, baby. But we're going to be okay." She didn't believe it, but mothers lie to their children. That's what love looks like sometimes. Outside, Nate had positioned himself behind a stack of firewood near the barn. Good cover, clear sightlines down the trail. He raised his rifle and waited. The riders came. Silas Crow rode at the front, that terrible smile stretched across his face. Behind him, a dozen men spread out in a loose formation. Armed, dangerous, eyes fixed on the cabin. "Stone!" Silas called out, pulling his horse to a stop at the edge of rifle range. "Been a few days. Miss me?" Nate's answer was to cock his rifle. The sound echoed across the ridge like a declaration of war. Silas laughed. Now, no need for hostility. I just came to talk." "You brought 12 men to talk?" "Protection. These mountains are dangerous." Silas spread his hands. "You of all people should know that." "Say what you came to say, then leave." "Straight to business. I like that." Silas leaned forward in his saddle. "Here's the thing, Stone. I've been thinking about our little arrangement. You paid $300 for that woman and her brats. Fair and square, legal and binding." He paused. "But I'm prepared to make you an offer. $500. Cash. Right now. For the woman and the oldest girl." Clara's blood turned to ice. "No deal," Nate said flatly. "You didn't even think about it." "Don't need to." $500, Stone. That's almost double what you paid. You could buy yourself a younger wife. Prettier. Less used up. Silas grinned. Think about it. I said no. 700. No. 1,000. Silas's smile faded slightly. That's my final offer. $1,000 for the woman and her oldest daughter. You keep the rest. Plenty of hands to work your land. Inside the cabin, Abigail made a sound, a small, terrified whimper. Clara grabbed her daughter's hand, squeezed hard. "He won't take you," she whispered fiercely. "Over my dead body." Outside, Nate hadn't moved. His rifle stayed trained on Silas's chest. "You're not hearing me, Crow. They're not for sale. Not for any price. Everything's for sale, Stone. You just haven't found your number yet." "Then let me be clear." Nate's voice dropped low and cold. "If any of your men come one step closer, I start shooting. And you're first." Silas studied him, that predator's gaze assessing, calculating. "You can't kill all of us. You might get 2, 3 if you're lucky. Then my boys put you down and take what they want anyway." "Maybe, but you'll still be dead." Nate shrugged. "I've made my peace with dying. Have you?" Silence stretched across the ridge. The wind howled through the trees. The horses stamped nervously. Then Silas laughed. A cold, ugly sound. "You've got grit, Stone. I'll give you that." He gathered his reins. "But this ain't over. Not by a long shot. Ride away, Crow, and don't come back." "Oh, I'll be back." Silas's eyes moved past Nate, toward the cabin. Toward the window, where Clara watched. "Tell Mrs. Stone I'm a patient man. I can wait. But sooner or later, she'll understand. There's no one in this territory who can protect her from me. Not even you." He wheeled his horse around. His men followed. Within minutes, they had disappeared down the trail, swallowed by the trees and the dust. Clara's legs gave out. She slumped against the wall, sliding down until she was sitting on the cold floor. Her whole body shook, not from cold, from something deeper. "Mama?" Benjamin knelt beside her. "Mama, are you okay?" "I'm fine." She wasn't fine. She was falling apart. "I'm fine, baby." The door opened. Nate stepped in, rifle still in hand, face unreadable. "They're gone," he said. For now. For now." Clara's voice cracked. "He's coming back. You heard him. He's patient. He can wait. Let him wait." Nate set the rifle by the door. "We'll be ready." "How?" Clara struggled to her feet, anger suddenly replacing fear. "How will we be ready? You're one man, Nate. One man against a dozen. What happens when he comes back with 20, 30? Then we fight. And die? If that's what it takes." Clara stared at him. At this man who had bought her family and was now willing to die for them. "That's not good enough," she said. "I won't let my children grow up as orphans because you decided to play hero." Nate flinched like she had slapped him. "Clara." "No, listen to me." She stepped closer, jabbing her finger into his chest. "You don't get to sacrifice yourself. You don't get to leave us alone. We just started building something here, something real. And I'll be damned if I let Silas Crow or anyone else take that away." "What do you want me to do? Run?" "I want you to think. Use that brain God gave you." Clara's eyes blazed. "There has to be another way. Something we haven't considered." Nate was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned to the window, staring out at the ridge. "There might be one thing," he said slowly. "What?" "The territorial marshal. He's based in Fort Collins. 2 days' ride. If I could get word to him about Crow's activities, the threats, the intimidation, the men he's got working for him, would he help?" "He might. Crow's been careful to stay just inside the law. But if the marshal saw him threatening a woman and children on their own land..." Nate shook his head. "It's a long shot. Long shots are better than no shots. Clara grabbed his arm. How do we reach him? I'd have to arrive there myself. Leave you and the children alone for 4 days, maybe 5. No. Benjamin stepped forward, his young face set with determination. I'll go. Ben, Clara started. I can ride. I'm not as good as Mr. Stone, but I can stay on a horse. And no one's looking for me. Crow won't expect a 12-year-old boy to be carrying messages. Nate studied him. It's dangerous. Everything's dangerous now. Benjamin lifted his chin. Let me do this. Let me help. Clara's heart clenched. Her son. Her brave, terrified, determined son. No, she said. Absolutely not. Mama. I said no. I won't send you out there alone where anything could happen. I won't lose you, Benjamin. I can't. But if I don't go, we might all die anyway. Then we die together. That's stupid. Benjamin Samuel Beckett. It's Stone now. Benjamin's voice cracked. You said so yourself. We're stones. And stones don't hide while someone else fights their battles. The cabin went silent. Clara stared at her son, at this boy who had been forced to grow up too fast, who had carried burdens no child should carry, who was now asking to carry one more. Mama, Abigail spoke quietly from the corner where she held the twins. He's right. Abby, if Crow comes back in force, we can't win. You know that. I know that. Abigail's voice trembled, but held steady. Ben's the best chance we have, maybe the only chance. Clara looked at her oldest daughter, at her oldest son, at all her children, watching her with those trusting, terrified eyes. She looked at Nate. If anything happens to him, she whispered. Nothing will happen to him. Nate moved to Benjamin, gripping the boy's shoulder. I'll give you my fastest horse. Directions to Fort Collins that avoid the main roads. A letter for the marshal with my seal. He knows me, knows I don't cry wolf. You'd trust me with this? Benjamin asked. I trusted your mother with my life the day I bought her. Trusting your son with a message seems about right. Benjamin's eyes glistened, but he didn't cry. He nodded once, sharp and sure. I won't let you down. I know you won't. Clara grabbed her son, pulled him into a fierce embrace. You come back to me, she said against his hair. You hear me, Benjamin Stone? You come back to me, or I swear I will march into heaven itself and drag you home. I'll come back, Mama. His arms tightened around her. I promise. They prepared him within the hour. Food for the journey, water, a knife, the letter sealed with Nate's mark. Directions repeated until Benjamin could recite them in his sleep. When he mounted the horse, a sturdy bay mare named Runner, he looked both older and younger than his 12 years. Ben! Charlotte ran forward before anyone could stop her. She pressed something into his hand. For luck. He looked down, a small stone, polished smooth by the river. Charlie, it's my best one. Brings good fortune. Mama says that's superstition, but I don't care. Her chin trembled. You bring it back to me, okay? Benjamin tucked the stone into his pocket. Okay. One by one, the other children said their goodbyes. Daniel gave him a hug. Emma made him promise to bring her a present. The twins waved with both hands. Abigail was last. She stood before her brother, eyes bright with unshed tears. You're braver than you know, she said quietly. I'm proud of you. Benjamin's composure cracked, just for a moment. Then he pulled it back together. Take care of them, Abby, while I'm gone. I will, he looked at Nate. Watch over my family, with my life. He looked at Clara. Couldn't speak, just nodded once. Then he kicked his heels into Runner's flanks and rode down the trail, disappearing into the trees without looking back. Clara watched until she couldn't see him anymore. Then she kept watching anyway. "He'll make it," Nate said quietly, coming to stand beside her. "You don't know that." "No, but I believe it." He paused. "That boy's got more courage than men twice his age. He gets it from his mother." Clara wiped her eyes roughly. "What now?" "Now we prepare. Crow won't wait forever, and when he comes back, we need to be ready." The next 3 days passed in a blur of preparation. Nate taught Clara how to shoot. She had known the basics, her father had shown her years ago. But Nate's instruction was different, precise, patient, focused. "Don't aim for the body," he told her. "Too easy to miss or just wound. Aim for center mass and squeeze. Don't pull." "What if I freeze?" "You won't." "How do you know?" "Because you're a mother. And mothers don't freeze when their children are in danger. They fight." By the 3rd day, Clara could hit a target at 50 yards more often than she missed. Abigail learned too. And Charlotte, despite Clara's protests. "I'm 10, Charlotte argued. "I'm practically grown." "You're a child." "I'm a child who's going to shoot anyone who tries to hurt my sisters." Clara couldn't argue with that logic. Even Daniel helped, carrying ammunition and water, keeping watch from the ridge. Emma entertained the twins, keeping them calm with songs and stories. They were becoming something. Not just a family, an army. On the evening of the 3rd day, Clara sat on the porch with Nate, watching the sun set behind the mountains. "He should be there by now," she said. "Benjamin." "Probably, if he pushed hard."
What if the marshal doesn't believe him? What if he won't help?
"Then we face Crow alone." Nate's jaw tightened. "But we face him together." Clara leaned against his shoulder. 3 days ago, she would have hesitated. Now it felt natural. Right. "I never thought I'd be here," she said quietly. "Where?" "Sitting on a porch in the mountains, waiting for outlaws, learning to shoot." She laughed softly. 2 weeks ago, I was standing on an auction block, praying someone would want me." "Someone did." "I know." She turned to look at him. "Why? Why did you really do it, Nate? And don't give me the speech about loneliness. There's something else. Something you haven't told me." Nate was silent for a long moment. His gray eyes stared at the fading light. "The day before the auction," he said finally, "I went to Sarah's grave. I go every year on the anniversary. I talk to her. Tell her about the year. Stupid, I know." "It's not stupid." "This time was different. I sat there for hours, couldn't think of anything to say, and then I realized why." He swallowed. "It's because I'd stopped living. I was going through the motions, but I wasn't alive. I was just waiting to die and join her." Clara's hand found his. "I asked her what to do," Nate continued. "I don't believe in ghosts, don't believe in signs. But I swear, Clara, right then a wind came through the cemetery, and I heard—" He stopped, shook his head. "What did you hear?" "I heard her laugh. Mary's laugh. Just for a second. And then it was gone." His voice cracked. "But I knew. I knew I had to stop waiting to die and start choosing to live." "And then you found us." "And then I found you." He turned to look at her. "Standing on that platform, holding your children, fighting for them with nothing but your pride." He reached up, touched her cheek. "You're not a replacement for Sarah, Clara. You're not a way to forget her. You're a reason to keep going, a reason to want tomorrow." Clara felt tears streaming down her face. She didn't try to stop them. "Nate." "Yeah?" She leaned forward and kissed him. It wasn't passionate, wasn't hungry. It was gentle, careful. Two broken people finding something whole in the space between them. When she pulled back, Nate's eyes were wet. "I don't deserve you," he whispered. "You do." She cupped his face in her hands.
You do, Nathaniel Stone, and don't let anyone tell you different.
They sat together as the stars came out, hand in hand, not speaking, not needing to. And then Charlotte's voice shattered the silence.
Mama! Riders! Coming fast!
Clara's heart stopped. She ran to the ridge edge, Nate beside her. Below, in the darkness, torches flickered. A lot of them, moving up the trail.
How many?
Clara asked, her voice steady despite the terror clawing at her chest. Nate counted. His face went pale. 20, maybe more. He turned to her. Get the children to the cellar, now.
Nate!
Now, Clara!
Whatever happens, you keep them safe. What about you? I'll hold them off as long as I can.
That's suicide.
It's necessary. He grabbed her arms, pulled her close. Listen to me. There's a way out of the cellar. A tunnel I dug years ago. It comes out by the river, half a mile east. If I fall, you take the children and you run. You don't look back. You hear me?
I won't leave you.
You will. Because those children need their mother more than they need me. His voice broke. Please, Clara, promise me. She wanted to argue, wanted to scream, wanted to grab him and hold him and never let go. But the torches were getting closer. I promise, she whispered. Nate kissed her, hard and desperate and final. I love you, he said. I know it's too soon. I know we barely know each other. But I love you, Clara Stone. And whatever happens tonight, I need you to know that. I love you too. The words came easy because they were true. I love you, Nate. He smiled, the first real smile she had ever seen on his face. Then I've already won, he said. Whatever they take from me, they can't take that. He grabbed his rifle and ran toward the trail. Clara ran toward the cabin.
Everyone up,
she shouted, bursting through the door.
Cellar, now!
The children moved. 3 days of preparation had drilled it into them. Abigail grabbed the twins. Charlotte grabbed Emma. Daniel stumbled, but kept his feet. Clara opened the trapdoor to the cellar.
Down! Go!
They went, one by one, disappearing into the darkness below. Gunshots echoed from the ridge. Clara froze at the trapdoor, looking back. Through the window, she could see muzzle flashes, could hear Nate's rifle, could hear men shouting, screaming.
Mama!
Abigail called from below.
Mama, come on!
Clara didn't move. Nate was out there, fighting, dying, and she had promised to run. More gunshots. A scream that might have been Nate's voice. Might have been.
Mama!
Clara grabbed the rifle Nate had given her. The one she had practiced with for 3 days. The one she had sworn to use only as a last resort.
Abigail, she said calmly, if I'm not back in 10 minutes, you take your brothers and sisters through the tunnel. You run, and you don't stop until you reach Fort Collins. Mama, no. Promise me. I can't. Promise me, Abigail Grace Stone.
Silence from below. Then, broken.
I promise.
Clara closed the trap door, pushed a heavy chest over it. If Crow's men found it, they'd have to work to get through. Then she ran outside. The ridge was chaos. Nate had taken cover behind the firewood pile, rifle blazing. 3 men lay still on the ground. 4 more were taking cover, shooting back. But more were coming. Always more. Clara raised her rifle, found a target, squeezed the trigger. The man spun, clutching his shoulder. She didn't have time to think about what she'd done. She worked the action, found another target, fired again.
Clara!
Nate's voice, shocked.
What are you doing? Fighting. I told you to run.
You're not my husband yet, Nathaniel Stone. You don't get to give me orders." Despite everything, Nate laughed, a wild, desperate sound. "You're crazy. You married me." More men coming up the trail. Clara fired until her rifle was empty, ducked behind a water barrel to reload. "Stone!" Silas Crow's voice rang out over the chaos. "This doesn't have to end in blood. Send out the woman, and we ride away." "Go to hell, Crow." "Have it your way." A torch arced through the air, landed on the cabin roof. Clara's heart stopped. The dry wood caught immediately. Flames licked up toward the sky. "No!" She started to run toward the cabin. Nate grabbed her arm. "The cellar. The children are in the cellar." They ran together, dodging bullets, crashing through the cabin door. Smoke was already filling the room, heat pressing down. Clara shoved the chest aside, yanked open the trapdoor.
"Abigail, the tunnel! Go, now!" Coughing from below. Then movement, shadows disappearing into darkness.
"Clara!" Nate pulled her toward the door. "We have to—" The ceiling groaned, cracked. Nate shoved Clara out the door just as a burning beam crashed down where she had been standing. They tumbled into the yard, coughing, gasping, and Silas Crow stood over them, pistol in hand, smile stretching across his face. "Finally," he said, "I do love it when they make it difficult." Clara looked up at him, at this man who had hunted her family, who had burned her home, who stood now with the power of life and death in his hands. "You can't have them," she said. "You'll never have them." "Oh, my dear," Silas cocked the pistol. "I already do." He aimed at Nate. Clara didn't think. She lunged. Clara's body slammed into Silas just as the pistol fired. The shot went wide, screaming past Nate's head into the burning cabin. Silas stumbled backward, cursing, and Clara fell with him, her fingers clawing at his gun hand. "You stupid woman!" She didn't let him finish. She drove her knee into his stomach with every ounce of strength she had. Silas doubled over, gasping, and the pistol flew from his grip, skittering across the frozen ground. Clara scrambled for it. Silas grabbed her ankle, yanking her back. She hit the ground hard, breath exploding from her lungs. He was on her in an instant, hands closing around her throat. "Should have taken my offer," he hissed, his face inches from hers. "Would have been easier for everyone." Clara couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Black spots danced in her vision. But she could still fight. Her hand found a rock. Small, sharp. She swung it with everything she had. The rock connected with Silas's temple. He howled, grip loosening just enough for Clara to twist free. She rolled, gasping, crawling toward the pistol. Her fingers closed around cold metal. She turned, raising the gun, just as Silas lunged for her again. "Stop!" The voice wasn't hers, wasn't Nate's. Everyone froze. Benjamin stood at the edge of the ridge, mounted on Runner, a rifle in his hands. Behind him, a dozen men on horseback spread out in formation. And at their head, wearing a silver star on his chest, rode a man with a gray beard and eyes like flint. "Silas Crow!" The marshal's voice rang out across the chaos. "You are under arrest for arson, attempted murder, and conspiracy to commit kidnapping. Order your men to stand down." Silas's face twisted. "You have no jurisdiction here. I have jurisdiction everywhere in this territory." The marshal urged his horse forward. "And I have a dozen witnesses to what you've done tonight, including a 12-year-old boy who rode 2 days without stopping to tell me exactly what kind of man you are." Clara's heart swelled. Benjamin, her brave, impossible son. Silas looked around. His men were backing away, hands rising, weapons dropping. The fight had gone out of them the moment they saw the silver star. "This isn't over," Silas snarled. "It is." Nate's voice came from behind Clara.
He had found his rifle, and it was trained on Silas's chest. "You're done, Crow. You've been done since the moment you threatened my family." Your family. The words hit Clara like sunlight after a storm. "Marshall," Silas forced a smile, spreading his hands. "This is a misunderstanding. I came here to burn down a man's home with children inside?" The marshal dismounted, drawing his pistol. "I saw the flames from a mile away. I saw your men shooting. I saw you with your hands around that woman's throat." He stepped closer, his voice dropping to ice. "Don't insult my intelligence." Two deputies moved forward, grabbing Silas's arms, forcing them behind his back. "You'll regret this," Silas spat. "I have friends in high places, lawyers, politicians. You can't." "I can, and I am." The marshal nodded to his men. "Take him. Take all of them." Clara watched as Silas Crow was dragged away, still shouting threats, still promising revenge. But his voice grew fainter with every step, swallowed by the night and the crackling of the burning cabin. Then Benjamin was there, sliding off his horse, running toward her. "Mama!" She caught him in her arms, holding so tight she thought she might break them both. "You did it," she whispered against his hair. "You did it, Benjamin. You saved us." "I promised I'd come back," his voice cracked. "I promised." "I know, baby. I know." Nate appeared beside them, one hand on Benjamin's shoulder. "You rode hard, son. Harder than most men could." Benjamin looked up at him, eyes shining. "I had to. They're my family." Nate's jaw tightened, but he nodded slowly. "Yes, they are." "The children," Clara pulled back suddenly, panic flooding through her. "Abigail and the others. The tunnel." "I'll find them." Nate squeezed her arm. "Stay here." He ran toward the edge of the ridge, disappearing into the darkness. Clara held Benjamin close, watching the cabin burn, watching her hope turn to ash. Everything they had built, everything they had started to become, gone. "Ma'am?" She turned. The marshal stood before her, hat in his hands, face creased with concern. "I'm sorry we didn't get here sooner. The boy pushed hard, but the mountains are unforgiving." "You came," Clara's voice broke. "That's what matters." "Your son's got courage, ma'am. Rode into Fort Collins half dead from exhaustion. Wouldn't rest until he'd told his story." The marshal shook his head. "I've seen grown men with less grit." "He gets it from his father." Clara looked at Benjamin, remembering Samuel, remembering the man who had loved her, who had given her 7 children, who had died too young.
"Both his fathers."
Benjamin's eyes widened, but he didn't speak, just held her tighter.
Voices echoed from the darkness. Clara's heart lurched. Then Nate emerged from the tree line, and he wasn't alone. Abigail came first, carrying Hope on her hip. Then Charlotte, her red hair wild, leading Grace by the hand. Daniel stumbled behind them, pale but standing. And Emma ran straight to Clara, crashing into her legs with the force of a small hurricane.
"Mama, the tunnel was dark and scary, but Abby said we had to be brave, and I was brave, Mama. I was so brave."
Clara dropped to her knees, gathering as many children as she could reach. They piled onto her, all of them, 7 bodies pressing close, 7 hearts beating against hers.
"You're safe," she whispered. "You're all safe."
"The cabin's burning," Daniel said quietly.
"I know, sweetheart."
"Where will we live?" Clara looked at the flames consuming everything Nate had built. 8 years of work. 8 years of grief poured into wood and stone. Gone in minutes. "We'll figure it out," she said.
"We always do."
Nate stood apart, watching the fire.
His face was carved from stone, but his gray eyes, held something broken. Clara gently untangled herself from the children and went to him. "Nate." He didn't look at her. "I built that cabin with my own hands. Every log, every nail. Sarah helped me choose the spot. Mary took her first steps on that floor." Clara's heart ached. "I'm sorry." "Don't be." His voice was hollow. "It was just wood, just stone. What matters is—" He stopped, swallowed hard. "What matters is what?" He finally turned to look at her, at the children huddled together behind her, at Benjamin standing tall with the marshal's men. "What matters is you're alive," he said quietly. "All of you. That's worth more than any cabin." Clara took his hand. "We'll rebuild." "Clara." "We'll rebuild, Nate. Together. That's what families do." Something shifted in his face. Something like hope, fragile and new. "Family," he repeated, like he was testing the word. "Family." Clara squeezed his hand. "You're not alone anymore. You haven't been since the moment you said $300. A sound escaped him. Not quite a laugh, not quite a sob. Something in between. "I don't deserve you," he whispered. "Stop saying that." Clara reached up, cupping his face in her hands. "You deserve everything, Nathaniel Stone. And I intend to spend the rest of my life proving it to you." She kissed him. This time, it wasn't careful, wasn't gentle. It was fierce and desperate and full of everything she couldn't say. "Ew!" Charlotte's voice rang out. "Mama's kissing Mr. Stone." "They're married," Abigail said wearily. "They're allowed." "It's still gross." "Everything's gross to you." "Not everything, just kissing." Clara pulled back, laughing despite everything. Laughing because her children were bickering, and her house was burning, and Silas Crow was finally gone. Laughing because she was alive. Because they all were. The marshal approached, clearing his throat. "Ma'am, Mr. Stone, I hate to interrupt, but we should get moving. It's a cold night, and those children need shelter." "Where?" Clara asked. "The cabin. There's a way station about 3 miles east. Basic, but warm. You can stay there tonight." The marshal paused. "Tomorrow, we'll figure out the rest." Nate nodded slowly. "Thank you, Marshal. For everything." "Thank your boy." The marshal glanced at Benjamin. "He's the one who wouldn't give up." They gathered what they could salvage: blankets from the wagon, food supplies, weapons. The children were exhausted, stumbling with fatigue, but none of them complained. They had survived too much to complain about a 3-mile walk. As they started down the trail, Clara looked back once at the burning cabin. "Don't look back," Nate said quietly beside her. "I have to." "Why?" Clara watched the flames reach toward the stars. "Because I want to remember what we lost, so I never forget what we still have." Nate was silent for a moment. Then he took her hand. "We'll build something better," he said. "Bigger, with rooms for all the children. A proper kitchen, maybe a porch where we can sit and watch the sunset." "That sounds nice." "It does, doesn't it?" He almost smiled. "Haven't thought about the future in a long time. Feels strange." "Good strange or bad strange?" "Good." He squeezed her fingers. "Definitely good." They walked through the night, a strange procession of deputies and children, and 2 people who had found each other against all odds. The stars wheeled overhead, the wind whispered through the pines, and Clara Stone, who had been sold on an auction block for $300, walked into her future with her head held high. The way station was small but warm. A stone fireplace dominated one wall, and the marshal's men quickly had a roaring blaze going. The children collapsed onto blankets spread across the floor, too tired to argue about sleeping arrangements. Clara tucked them in one by one. Grace and Hope first, curled together as always. Emma next, clutching the small wooden horse Daniel had whittled for her. Daniel himself, still pale but breathing steadily. Charlotte, who fell asleep mid-complaint about something or other. Abigail was last. She sat by the fire, staring into the flames, her face older than her 14 years. "Abby," Clara sat beside her, "you should sleep." "Can't." Abigail's voice was distant. "Every time I close my eyes, I see him. Crow, standing over you." Clara put her arm around her daughter. "He's gone now. He can't hurt us anymore." "This time? But what about next time? What about the next Silas Crow?" "Then we fight again." Clara pressed a kiss to her daughter's hair. "That's what we do, sweetheart. We fight and we survive and we keep going." "Aren't you tired of fighting?" "Exhausted," Clara smiled. "But I'll never be too tired to protect you. Any of you." Abigail was quiet for a long moment. Then she leaned into her mother's embrace. "I was so scared," she whispered. "In that tunnel, hearing the gunshots, smelling the smoke. I thought—" Her voice broke. "I thought you were dead." "I'm not dead. I'm right here." "Promise you won't leave us? Promise you'll always come back?" Clara held her tighter. "I promise, Abigail. I will always come back to you." They sat together until Abigail's eyes grew heavy and her breathing slowed. Clara eased her down onto a blanket, tucking it around her shoulders. Then she found Benjamin. He was outside, standing guard with the deputies, despite their protests that he should rest. Stubborn boy, just like his father. "Ben!" He turned. In the moonlight, he looked so young, so tired. "You should be inside," he said. "So should you." "I can't sleep." He looked out at the darkness. "Keep thinking about what would have happened if we'd been too late. If the marshal hadn't believed me. But none of that happened." Clara moved to stand beside him. "You made it. He believed you. And here we are." "Here we are." Benjamin's voice was flat. "Standing in the cold because our house burned down." "Standing," Clara repeated. "That's the important part. We're still standing, Benjamin. After everything that's happened, the auction, Crow, the fire, we're still here, still together." Benjamin was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was small. "Mama, do you think Pa would be proud of me?" Clara's heart clenched. "Oh, sweetheart, he would be so proud. He is proud, wherever he is." "I keep trying to remember what he sounded like, his voice, but it's getting harder." Benjamin's eyes glistened. "I don't want to forget him." "You won't. He's part of you, Benjamin. The way you protect your sisters, the way you never give up. That's your father's legacy." "That's who he was." Clara touched her son's cheek. "And now you have Nate too. Not to replace your father, never that, but to help you become the man you're meant to be." Benjamin nodded slowly, then, quietly, "I think I could learn to trust him." "I think you already have." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "Maybe. Get some sleep, Ben. Tomorrow's going to be a long day." "What about you?" "I'll be in soon. I just need a moment." Benjamin hesitated. Then he hugged her, quick and fierce, before disappearing inside. Clara stood alone in the darkness, looking up at the stars.
So much had changed in such a short time. 2 weeks ago, she had been a desperate widow, about to watch her children scattered across the frontier. Now she was a wife again, a homeowner, or she would be once they rebuilt. A survivor. Can't sleep? She turned. Nate stood behind her, wrapped in a blanket, face soft in the moonlight. Too much thinking, she admitted. I know the feeling. He moved to stand beside her. Mind if I join you? Please. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the stars wheel slowly overhead. I've been thinking, Nate said finally. About what? About the cabin. About what we should build next. He paused. I was thinking maybe we should do it together this time. You and me and the children. Make it a family project. Clara smiled. Benjamin would like that. He's been wanting to learn carpentry. Charlotte, too, I'd wager. That girl wants to learn everything. She does. Drives me crazy sometimes. It's a good trait. Nate's voice warmed. Curiosity, stubbornness, the refusal to accept limits. She'll do great things someday. They all will. Clara looked back at the way station, at the warm glow of firelight through the windows. They've been through so much. Too much. But they're still kind, still hopeful, still willing to love. They get that from you. Maybe. Or maybe it's just who they are.
She leaned against him, feeling his arm come around her shoulders.
I used to worry I was ruining them, that all the hardship, all the fear, would break something inside them. And now? Now I think maybe it made them stronger, made all of us stronger. She looked up at him. Including you. Nate was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. I never thought I'd feel this way again. After Sarah, after Mary, I thought that part of me was dead. And now? Now I know it was just sleeping. He turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. Clara, I'm not a poet. I don't have fancy words. But I need you to know something. What? When I paid that $300, I thought I was buying a housekeeper, someone to cook and clean and make my empty life a little less empty. He shook his head. I was a fool. Nate, let me finish, please. He took a breath. What I got instead was a miracle. 7 children who fill my home with noise and chaos and life. A woman who stands up to outlaws and fights beside me and makes me want to be better than I am. His voice cracked. I got a family, Clara. A real family. And I don't have words for what that means to me. Tears streamed down Clara's face. She didn't try to stop them. You saved us, she whispered. We saved each other. He pulled her close, pressing his forehead to hers. That's what family does. They held each other in the starlight, 2 broken people made whole by love and loss and the stubborn refusal to give up. When they finally went inside, the children were sleeping soundly, piled together like puppies. Clara and Nate found a spot near the fire, curling up together, their hands intertwined. Tomorrow, Nate murmured sleepily, we start over. Together, Clara agreed. Together. They slept. In the morning, they would begin the long process of rebuilding. There would be hard days ahead, challenges, setbacks, moments when the weight of it all would seem too heavy to bear. But they would face it together. The spring came early that year. By April, the new cabin stood on the ridge, bigger and stronger than before. Benjamin had helped lay every log, his young muscles aching, but his heart proud. Charlotte had insisted on installing the door handle herself. Even the twins had contributed, carrying small stones for the fireplace, while Emma supervised with all the authority of a 6-year-old general. Clara stood on the new porch, wider than the old one, with a rocking chair Nate had built just for her, and watched her family work in the yard below.
Abigail was teaching Daniel to ride properly, patient and encouraging. Benjamin was helping Nate repair the fence, the two of them working in comfortable silence. Charlotte chased Emma around the vegetable garden, while the twins shrieked with laughter. 7 children, 1 husband. A home built from ashes and hope.
Clara's hand drifted to her stomach, where a new secret grew. She hadn't told Nate yet, hadn't told anyone, but soon, when the time was right. Nate looked up from his work, as if sensing her gaze. He smiled, a real smile, the kind that reached his eyes and softened all the hard edges of his face. She smiled back. 2 months ago, she had stood on an auction block, praying for someone, anyone, to see her worth. Now she stood on her own porch, surrounded by love, surrounded by family, surrounded by everything she had never dared to dream. The world had called her worthless, undesirable, a burden. The world had been wrong, because Clara Stone was not worthless. She was a mother who had held her family together through poverty and grief and fire. She was a wife who had fought beside her husband against impossible odds. She was a survivor who had turned $300 and a stranger's gamble into something beautiful. She was enough. She had always been enough. And now, finally, she knew it.
"Mama,"
Emma called from the yard.
"come play with us."
Clara laughed, rising from her chair, walking down the porch steps toward her children, toward her husband, toward the life they had built together from nothing but courage and love. The mountains watched over them like ancient guardians. The sky stretched endless and blue. And somewhere in the distance, a hawk cried out, riding the wind toward the horizon. Clara Stone had been sold for $300 on a cold January day. But what she found was worth more than any amount of gold. She found family. She found home. She found herself. And that was everything.